Okay? So, give me a thumbs up real quick. Is everybody ready to go and learn? Hell yes. Okay. So let's rock and roll. So today's training is all about how to execute a small group personal training session. And again, today's session is all about, from the start, how do you get somebody to, feel safe, right? Feel good about going into your sessions. And before I even go into that, let me just tell you a little bit about this whole training model, right? So I started a gym 16 years ago in Slovenia. I've had the one in Seattle for about 15 years. Started the small group personal training model about 13, 14 years ago. And the reason why was this, and some of you may resonate with this. So I was doing either 101 or semi-private personal training, which is a pretty good chunk of investment for people. Okay, matter of fact, our 2 times a week semi-private was somewhere in the $450 to $500 a month range. Okay, so with that said, our team training, which is our large group training, was about $200 a month, right? So pretty big gap. Now, our team training is very, I would say, metabolic resistance training. It's more conditioning oriented, intervals, density training, things of that nature, which is great. It's a great program. We do a lot of awesome stuff with it. And then in semi-private training, we're doing more customized programs for, where they're doing strength training. So there's a big gap between that. And my belief is that everyone should do strength training, right? Strength and performance training in some format, in some manner. And so between those 2 price points, that's when I first was like, hey, what if we did these small groups? And the way we launched our first small group was through a program called Mansformation, which was an 8-week men's program. That was a small group. And we signed up 23 people for it, and then 14 people stayed on board afterwards at a continuing rate. At that point in time, it was $275, right? So now our programs are $317 to $347. And what it made me realize is not only that people loved that format, but they were able to do strength training and get their conditioning in with other classes. And that's how we started everything, and it kept building and building. Now, the program that I started off was not the format that I will teach you today and what you've seen inside of, I would say, those 12 months of programming that you get. And the reason why, too, is because it has evolved, and I've improved it. And not only that, I've learned to do it in very small spaces, 900 square feet or less, to bigger spaces, to now we have a big space, but we also have multiple programs going on at the same time. So when I'm running small group, or when our coaches are running small group, we also have semi-private training going on, team training going on, right? We have a lot of stuff going on. So we're restricted, even though I have a bigger space, we're restricted with space and time and schedule, which I'm sure a lot of you are as well. And so this is how this model came to be. So I want you guys to understand the story, the origin of it was not only because I wanted to solve a problem, which I think is really important, right? If you solve problems, good things happen. But it was another revenue stream from the gym, but it was better results for clients because more people could afford that price point and then get strength training and conditioning, and we saw the results go like this, right? So again, it's a win-win-win situation. It's a win for the business, for you, for the clients, and it gives you a whole nother model. Now, I've talked about this, both in the ebook, but before, which is that this specific program is 3 times a week, right? It's full body strength training, which I know there's some questions around that, and I'll answer those at the end. But full body strength training, because I don't know how many times a week somebody's going to come in. Yes, it's made for 3 times a week. Sometimes people come 2 times a week. Sometimes people come 1 time a week because it's all they can do, right, schedule-wise. But it's great because they're always doing full body strength training, and they can always still progress that day, okay? So with that said, let's first of all look at let's zoom out a little bit and go, okay, how does somebody even come into that program? Well, every one of you may have different front-end offers. So remember, front-end offer is something that entices a person to try you out in some way or another, right? It could be, I'm going to show you guys, for us, right, it's 30-day results in advance. I personally, I coach and pitch this so much to Fit Pros because I think it's so effective. So it's a 30-day paid program where people get to experience everything that we do, and it's risk-free. And what I mean by risk-free, legitimately the way I pitch it to somebody is like, hey, listen, it's a way of getting results in advance and trying this out, without any commitment and risk. Because if you're 10 days in, 14 days in, and you think we suck, or you just didn't feel like we delivered on expectations, let us know. I'll Venmo you the money back. I'll give you cash back. No questions asked, no paperwork, no nothing, right? So it takes all that risk away. And then they get those 30 days to do semi-private training once a week, to get all of our small groups and team training, they get nutrition coaching, right? And it's all for just $197, right? This is actually a like $499 price point because they also get physical therapy. They just get a lot of value, right? And so that's our main way of getting people to try us out and doing small group along with that as well. I'm going to give you a couple of other examples because I want you to just kind of, we're going to have a whole training about the business side of that, which is training number 4. But I did want to kind of tell you about like just some examples of what you can do. Another one is 3 VIP sessions. Now, this is like a really simple, cool way on a daily basis where you can get folks in. So, for example, inside of Vigor Ground, we have a Fit Bar Cafe. Right, it's a smoothie bar. I lease it out. We don't own it. But as soon as somebody comes in there and gets a smoothie for the second time, what's a really easy way to upsell them is go like, hey, did you know that as a returning customer of Fit Bar Cafe, you get 3 VIP workouts with Vigor Ground, fitness and performance, right? And they go like, oh, I didn't know that. Would you like to take advantage of that? Yeah, sure, great. Let's get your number and a coach will contact you for 3 VIP sessions, right? On us. I don't like saying free, by the way. Always say, we'll pay for it. Right? It's a big difference if you say, oh, it's free, or it's like, no, I'll take care of it. I'll pay for it. Different value, right? So that's one way that you can do it. Or like there's many a times where somebody's talked to me about, they'll come in and go like, oh, wow, this is a gym. And we have a little bit of a conversation like, hey, where do you train now? Oh, I train at the local gym. It's like nobody's really pushing me. Say, hey, listen, do you want to take advantage of, I'll pay for 3 VIP sessions for you. You want to take advantage of that? Yeah, absolutely, great. Let me get your number. Right, so this is a really quick one. And from the 3 VIP sessions, you can then get them into results in advance in a 30-day program or something else, right? But again, because what are you going to do? You're going to do a great job, right? Part of doing this system is that like your experience and your coaching is going to be at this level that people are going to want to stay, right? But the goal is how do you get them in the door, right? That's the big one, okay? Then you got challenges, right? So challenges, we just had one that was an internal 6-week challenge. So these are I mentioned first, Mansformation, that was an 8-week program. We have a Stronger program and challenge that we did. Right, so that's just a closed-ended program that you can launch. You could legitimately launch it tomorrow. And small group would be the base of that. So for example, let's say you went and did a 6-week program. You get 3 small group personal training sessions per week. You get a recipe book, a nutrition plan, and that's going to be $399 or $299. Again, you guys are all different types of places and countries, so it's good. The price points will be a little bit different, but you can see where I'm coming with this, right? It's a low-risk, closed-ended program, so you don't have to sign up for a year membership, and you get them in to try this out, right? So that's 3 ways. Again, we lean very heavily on this. This is a daily one that's a quick hitter. You can get leads in very fast, and I think challenges are good throughout the year, but too many of them is no bueno, right? So usually New Year's, pre-summer, back to school is a good time to launch some of those. And it's really great to launch these, again, if you don't have a small group personal training program right now, and like I said, we'll talk about this in week 4, this is a great way to launch it. And to go like, hey, listen, we're going to start off with a small group personal training program, beta program, it's going to be a 6-week program. We only have this many spaces, this is something new, right? And you promote the hell out of it, and you get members, non-members, friends, family in on it. It's a great way to launch it and to start. Again, I mentioned this was like 14 years ago that we did a Mansformation. And if you remember 14 years ago, there was no Facebook, social, there was none of that, right? We literally did it word of mouth, talking to people, family, friends, email, and got 23 people into the first program with 14 converting. So think, 14 times 275 is in about, $3,500 a month. That's $42,000 a year in a launch of a small group personal training program, just one group, right? So you can see how powerful this can be. So now that we understand, okay, cool, how's somebody going to come in? What happens next? Well, there's 2 ways really that we're going to find out and assess a person, right? One is going to be what we call our strategy session. And so our strategy session is going to be one-on-one. This is when somebody sits down with with a coach, and that coach kind of determines the path on the GPS. So this is what we always tell our clients, like, hey, you are here, point A, okay? So we're trying to find out what point A is. What do they struggle with? What have they previously done for training? They talk about their nutrition. They talk about any type of aches and ailments and I would say health history and things of that nature, right? And we find out, like, strength level, all the, like, this is point A, okay? What is point B? Point B is like where they want to go on the GPS, right? What do they want to feel like? What performance do they want to have? What they want to look like? All those different things, right? And what we sell essentially is the path on a GPS from point A to point B. Now, in this strategy session, if they're sitting down with a coach one-on-one, they're also going through an assessment, right? So we basically get the range of motion in their hips. We kind of see how they're moving. And we also do these base lifts, which I'll show you guys in a second, right? So we just want to see, how they're moving, if there's certain restrictions that they have. And again, spending time with somebody because the strategy session is for an hour, right? So we spend quite a bit of time with them, find out a lot about them, okay? Now, again, if they've done this, we could send them straight into I would say, small group personal training session. And this coach would communicate with the coach that's running the small group session that there's a new client and would let them know, hey, this client's coming in. They have no cartilage in the knees, so they can't do any, deep flexion of the knees, right? So we're going to have to make some adjustments for them. Okay, so that's the strategy session. The other part now, this one's very, very useful, and we paused this a little bit while we were doing COVID, just because of the group size of things, but orientations are up to 10 to 12 people, okay? So what's cool about orientation is that you can get a number of people in to have them do a group assessment. So what we would do in that orientation is the first 10 to 15 minutes, really we talk about, the philosophy of the gym, kind of like our origin story. What is our mission? And if you go to the Vigor Ground website, you'll see that it says, we help clients change their bodies so they can change the stories to their lives. That's our tagline. That's what we believe in. People come to us to change a story through empowering themselves, through changing their body, both physically, mentally, improving their performance, feeling better, building confidence, right? And then when they do that, they're able to change the story of their life because they're not liking where their story's going, right? And again, so in orientation, we talk about that because I think it's very important to differentiate how you are different than somebody else as far as a gym or a coach or anything else goes. And I think the why is important. If you guys heard of Simon Sinek, right? Like in his book, Start With Why, we talk about our story, right? And if I'm doing orientation, I'm talking about my story and why I started Vigor Ground and how we try to help people achieve their goals, getting to that point beyond the GPS. And then from there, we take them, we explain, listen, here are the different programs that we have, and here's what they do and how they go. So we talk through it because we'll talk more about this, but expectations. This is a very, very important thing. I'm going to come back to this, okay? So if you don't create expectations, people are uncertain. If people are uncertain, it makes them anxious, right? So you have to create expectations of exactly what is going to happen from there on out. It's very important, okay? But from there, we take them through a dynamic warm-up, right? And when I flip this, I would say this board around and we're going to go through the actual training session, you'll see there's a dynamic warm-up that's about 8 to 12 minutes long. We take them in orientation through that dynamic warm-up so that they understand this is dynamic warm-up. You're going to be doing this before every group session, whether it's a team training session or a small group personal training session, even if it's semi-private. But if it's semi-private, it'll be more customized, right? Once we take them through that, we take them through these base lifts right here, okay? Now, trust me, I've done every single assessment thing that you can imagine, whether it's the FMS, the FRA, you name it, right? We've done it. So we've come back to the conclusion that if we can just have people lift and see how they're lifting and then correct them there, we have a really good insight on how they're going to move and what things we need to change for them or not. So in our orientation, so imagine that there's 10 people. I want to give you a scenario, right? If there's 10 people, first, we're going to take everybody through the kettlebell deadlift, okay? And I would coach the kettlebell deadlift, okay? I'd give the coaching cues, and then the people would do it, and then we'd correct them, okay? And again, in that orientation, in a short amount of time, you can get people deadlifting well. If they have really restricted hips, we'll elevate it on plates and say, hey, whenever you're doing any type of deadlifts from now on, I want you to be elevated, right? So we're teaching them also which lifts are going to be safe for them and what not going to be safe. And this covers the other part, safety. Orientation and strategy sessions really drill in. Our number one thing is, hey, yes, we want to challenge you and push you to get better, to get to that point, be on the GPS, but you're going to be safe, okay? I think a lot of gyms, what happens is, they want to try to look too hardcore. And from the outside in, you might be like, damn, Vigor's pretty hardcore. But we actually take a lot of, I would say, make sure people feel safe, because that's very, very important when it comes to training, okay? So we'll take them through the kettlebell deadlift, okay? Through kettlebell goblet squat. This is just a great way to teach the squat. A 90-90 lunge. And then we'll kind of show them the difference, right? So if we're in that 90-90 lunge position, and in teaching them what that means, how it is to lunge, we'll then do a reverse lunge too, and just show them some variation and have them understand regressions, progressions, and our model of that. Because this is the other thing we do in orientation. We talk about our system, right? The reason why that gives people confidence is because if you have a principle and a system, they're like, whoa, okay. They know what they're doing. They got a whole structure. There's a whole sequencing of things that is going to help me get to point B, rather than it's just all over the place. So that's what orientation does, right? It really helps solidify that. Okay, so we do the 90-90 lunge. And again, every one of these, I show it, they do it, I correct it and coach it. Then we do a push-up, we do a TRX row, and we do a plank. Now, is that all of the movements? No, but these are the baseline movements. And we had to kind of pick and choose and go like, hey, okay, if they can do these and we can coach these, we're in a pretty good place. Once we coach them through these, then we take them through a mini workout, okay? And we tend to choose the density option, just like the one, block 2 in the small group personal training program design. And we'll essentially go, for example, we do a kettlebell deadlift, a push-up, and then possibly a row in a set of 3, and just give them a small time, like 6 minutes, where they're going through it. Okay, and then I would say part 2, we'd go goblet squat, TRX row, and a plank, for example, right? So, or a 90-90 static lunge. So the point is that they just get a feel for how to look like. And then, as we finish off, we go hardcore into expectations, right? Because the thing is, you don't want to have an orientation, go and like crush somebody that's a brand new beginner. Like that's not, you want to, and the cool thing about it is like, let's say somebody is more advanced, they're a former athlete, they're trying to get back in shape. We put them through orientation. I'm going to challenge that person a little bit more, right? So that they're not like, oh, like this is way easy. We're going to explain like, no, this is just orientation, but I'm going to push them in those 6 minutes. Somebody is going to be a beginner, like all I care about is like great form, hey, take a break. Most important thing is like excellent form, right? If you have to rest longer, that's okay, rest longer. Okay, because again, we want to make sure that yes, we individualize within this orientation, but then now we have these base fundamentals that people can do well, so that any kind of session they go into, whether it's team training or they go in small group training, they have a baseline, right? And I will, when I flip this and we go into the program design part of it, you'll see how to make adjustments. I know there's always questions about like, what if, I got somebody that's more advanced and then somebody is a brand new beginner, how do you operate that? And again, I'm doing this in the real world at all times. So like running small group yesterday, we had one brand new person that had a bunch of experience. They were quick to pick it up, even some more advanced movements. But there's one person that's their first week. It was their second session, right? The first one wasn't in my group training. And I coached them more. I regressed some movements for them, right? And once I regressed the movements for them, they were challenged. They weren't hurting. They were feeling good. At the end, they were like, wow, this was a great session. It was hard for me, but I feel good that I got through it and nothing hurt and I feel empowered, right? So that's what we want, no matter what level this person's coming in on, okay? So if you wanted to create a baseline of an orientation of other exercises, cool. Again, we went through a bunch of different things, and when we do our little mini workout, we'll add stuff in there just so people get a feel for it. Like usually we'll end up pushing the sled or pushing the prowler at the end, like very short ones, so they just get a feel for the conditioning aspect of it too, right? So again, our orientations are about an hour long, but this is a great way to get multiple people in and assess them, right? If you're a one-man show, if you have your one-person show plus a part-time coach, and you got 8 people, right, in that week, it may be tough for you to do 8 strategy sessions but you could do one orientation, no problem, for the whole 8 people, right? So that's what got us to doing that. As we were getting a big influx of folks, and it was really difficult to do one-on-ones every week, we just changed to the orientation model, okay? Now, before I even flip to the other side, right, remember, let's recap on what are we trying to do in orientation. Safety, right? Because majority of people that we see are still either kind of beginners or intermediates, right? You don't really get a lot. We do get advanced people. We train a lot of very high-level athletes, but as a percentage of people that we're helping, I'm sure that for you guys as well, it's a lot of people that are beginners, maybe scared of fitness. It's our responsibility to make them feel safe. Expectations. I cannot stress enough about going through exactly what's going to happen, right? And let me tell you an example. Like, I'm pretending I'm in front of the orientation group. All right, great guys, like all of you guys went through orientation. Now, I'm going to find out which classes you're going to be in for the first class. I'm going to let the coach know that you'll be in this group training session. They'll already know what's going on with you to look out for any restrictions that you have. And in your 30, let's say, if you're in a 30-day trial, you're going to get one semi-private session with the coach. The coach is going to contact you if they didn't already, and they're going to start doing your customized program. You have access to all the team trainings. Here's the schedule, which you got through Zen Planner, and you can log in through that. My small group, who's going to be here for my small group on Tuesday? Raise your hand. Awesome, can't wait to see you, Jenny, Mike, Jerry, right? Like, I'll go through that. So I already know that they're going to be there. And if you have any questions, here's my phone number. Here's the email to contact. Here, like, create everything that you can. Now, obviously, this should be in a follow-up email as well. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, even in orientation, when you create the expectations of exactly what happens, you create certainty. And certainty does this to anxiety, right? And if somebody leaves the gym after orientation, they're like, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about this? Now they're uncertain, and now they're going to be anxious, and the chances of them, coming back drop down, or they become like, I don't know, like, this is another one of those places. So don't let that happen. And always, this is a big one, right? I'll NLP Tony Robbins people in orientation all day long about possibility and results, right? I want them to constantly see what they want and like what we're going to help them get to that point B, right? I'm assumptively already talking, right? Guys, I can't wait after this first month, that phase 2, when we progress you, when we tweak this a little bit, you're going to be feeling better, you're going to be moving better, your energy's going to be better. Like, when you were talking about not having enough energy for the kids, and that's already going to be different in month 2 and then in month 3. So maybe they haven't even signed up beyond the trial. I'm already assumptively talking about what's going to happen, right, and how they're going to change. I'm constantly showing possibility, because people are not very good at this, by the way, right? They're very good at beating themselves up. They're very good at, like, here I am, I dropped off again, like I'm not doing the diet again. So, right, we have to be that I would say, that place that reframes things and guides them in a positive direction. And this is practice. I mean, this, again, to me, I'm talking about how to execute a great small group personal training session, where we're going to get to, like, I would say, the training 2 is all about the DNA of a world-class elite group training session, right? And we're going to talk more about what I'm talking about right now and go into the weeds and into the details, which I think is one of the most important things, right? If you're an incredible coach and create an incredible experience, people are going to be talking about you, not be able to stop talking about you, and you're going to have word of mouth and referrals, right? Which is the most important foundational thing in how to grow the business. Okay, so before we flip to the other side, part of safety, right, and something we talk about is this model when you guys see the exercises in a program, is regression, progression, lateralization. That one is kind of like, sounds like a really geeky word, but I'll explain what that means, okay? So whenever you have an exercise, you should do this by yourself and with your team, okay? This is part of the training. So if I have a trap bar deadlift here as a main exercise, right? So this is like my baseline, okay? Trap bar, DL. I have to have anybody on my team or yourself be able to give me 2 regressions, 1 progression, and 1 lateralization. So what would that mean in this scenario? Well, this one, super simple. The first regression would be elevated, right? So somebody has very tight hips. A lot of people come to us with very tight hips. Pulling from the floor, they may not be able to get there, and they have to start using their back as they go up. Like, even if we correct their form, right? It's not a good place. So we'd elevate it. That'll be your first regression. And then number 2, they might have to go to kettlebell deadlift. And maybe they can go to a double kettlebell deadlift because handles are higher. They can get a better position, like the bells are right underneath them, right? So there's less stress on the low back, there's more hips. So that would be my usual 2-point regression to the trap bar deadlift. Now, progression, what could we do? Well, there's a lot of things we do. Obviously, you just have more load, right? That's an easy one. But also, you could have somebody that has maybe a weakling sticking point and they're doing a pause. So they lift, they pause by the knees for 1001, and then they drive through, progression. We could also, we could argue that adding chains is actually a regression, which it is. It can be a regression and a progression, right? We could add bands. We could add some type of intensification model to progression. To be honest with you, majority of the time, we're not going to do that, right? Because if we're doing a 3-rep, trap bar deadlift, like this program on the other side has, if you do a challenging 3-rep, that's a challenging 3-rep, right? But what might be a lateralization? So lateralization is where progressions and regressions are going to be the same pattern. Lateralization is something like somebody for some reason, for example, they tweak their back playing basketball and like, hey, I don't feel like any deadlifts is just not going to do it for me right now. But they feel fine doing a hip thrust, right? So we're still working the posterior chain, hamstrings, and glutes. Not the same pattern. We do lateralization, and all of a sudden they're on a glute drive, or they're doing a barbell hip thrust. They're like, yeah, this feels good actually. Great. Boom. But I have to have that, right? I have to have that locked and ready. And I'm talking about like when somebody comes in, oh, Luke, I can't do that. Okay, great. Let's get you doing this. Right? There's a confidence behind it, which means that you have to be prepared. And this is one of the things I'm going to talk about throughout the 4 weeks, on and on and on and on, is this. To be excellent at this, to have a world-class program that differentiates itself from everybody else, you have to be prepared. You got to be prepared. And how do you prepare? Well, put it this way. I'll tell you what. You don't come 5 minutes before the class and are like, I'm ready. No. Like, I'm writing out 4x6 cards. We're going to cover that in week 2 of the training. Right? A lot of times, I'm not only setting up classes, I'm doing like, essentially like, role play with small group stuff. Whether it's even when I was solo, I would be prepping on this, setting up the gym, moving around, seeing how it would be, preparing my stories that I'm going to tell, know my progressions and regressions, like do hypothetical scenarios of what could happen and be prepared for it. Like spending time, just like if I said, hey, you're going to present next week in front of 1,000 people, would you show up last minute and just go on stage? I mean, if you have thousands of hours of practice, maybe, but most of the time you'd be like, oh my God, I got to prepare. Correct. Why don't you do that with small group personal training? Why don't you do that with your group training? Right? That's my whole thing. Like the way that I became really good at this stuff, that I was obsessive about it, I was like, oh my God, I got to make sure I put on a show. This has got to be like tip top. It's got to be the best. People got to come in and go like, wow, that was different than anything else I've ever done. And so if you have that approach, you're going to be successful. But if you're kind of like doing mediocre stuff and like putting mediocre amount of effort into it, it's not going to be a great program, right? And I would love to tell you that if you just bought this program, that you just have to sit there and let the good vibes hit you and be the greatest coach on earth. It's not going to happen, all right? You're going to have to do the work. So I'm sorry. Oh, there's half of the people leaving. No, I'm just joking, right? But I mean, I got to keep it real. This is just the reality of it, that you have to put in the work. There's just no other way around it, okay? So with that said, I'm going to flip the board because we're going to go into the execution of the program, okay, and then into the Q&A. So, look at that. Park job. Also, I'm going to sip on my C4 right now, just letting you know. This has got to happen. Everything's better in the world with that. Okay, so how to execute. We talked about the breakdown of this, right, the model. Before I go into the model, I want to share something. People will get like, why is it like this? Okay? So, would you agree that getting stronger, no matter what your goal is, so let's say your goal is fat loss, let's say your goal is feeling better, is getting stronger important? What about health? Whether from bone density, I could go over meta studies about why strength training is so important, right, for longevity. We'd all agree, yes, okay? What about 2? Being powerful and fast and having reactivity, right? Being able to react to stuff. Is that important? And somebody might be like, I don't care, I just want to look better. Well, listen, we know that the first thing that you lose when you age is power. It's the fast twitch muscle fibers, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And we know that if after the age of 50, it's like if you fall, 1 out of 3 people will break their hip, which is a very problematic thing. It's very hard to recover from. You gain weight. A lot of people that are over like 60 and 70, they actually die very fast after that. I know I'm not trying to be morbid here, but my point being is you should, for health reasons and for just better life reasons, should also train those properties. I don't care, obviously if you're your 20s and 30s, it's like, yeah, I want to be more athletic. Cool. But even if you don't, because when you fall, what do you think that's most important? I'm going to react, right? Reactivity, power, right? So those are the things that we have to develop. And so that's why I was like, well, in a program that I feel is a complete program. Now remember, the most complete program is always going to be the individualized program, semi-private 101, okay? But for a group of 10, 12, 16, even 20 people that we do this with, I've done this specific model now with some tweaks for the last, started 14 years ago, but for 6 years, okay? And if I find something better, I'm going to change it and adapt it, and I'm going to drop it into the course, okay? But this has been the best, and it's been the best for the timelines that we have, which is 1 hour, right? We got a 1 hour period, okay? So that first block, okay, is strength and power. Dynamic warm-ups, always, right? Always. We always want to do dynamic warm-ups, and I put 8 to 12 minutes. Look, reality is people, and I've done a lot of feedback on this, that our clients, our members, feel better with a little longer warm-ups, right? I would say like 10 minutes is the sweet spot. I actually wrote one out here just so you could see the idea behind it, okay? Because this would take, and what I've started doing in warm-ups too, I timed exercises. Instead of saying reps per side, like some people are going to move a little faster, some a little bit slower. I just put a timer on it. I put a timer on everything in these things, right? So child's pose to lat stretch, spinal roll. That's kind of like a decompression exercise, right? They're in a child's pose position. They go across on the floor. They feel the lat stretch, that low back, QL. Boom, they go to the other side, butt up in the air, spinal roll. You can look up the exercise, not just online, but inside the programs too. But from there, child's pose, thoracic rotation. So notice, these are like more kind of like single joint exercises, right? We start calming them down, releasing tone and tension, and then we get a little bit more dynamic, right? Spider-Man lunge with external rotation, greatest stretch in the world. Downward dog to squat walkout, right? So hammy stretch, they're walking out, doing that squat pattern. We'll do a side lunge with glide, and then we got slalom hops, pogo jumps, high knees. Notice at the end is always something faster paced that gets their nervous system going, right? So you kind of, again, you start slower, breathing, longer stretches, bring them down, because most people that come into our sessions, they're coming for a stressful day, right? So we calm them down a little bit, then we start doing more, I would say, full body dynamic movements, and then we progress to like faster movements, right? And I write about that in the ebook as far as like how we do this and progress, and there's examples of warm-ups inside of the ebook as well, right? So this is going to be 8 to 12 minutes, and then I'm going to break down the session. Now what's cool about it is like once people have done it a couple of times, they know the format. The format is very easy to understand, so it's cool because you really have to spend just a little bit more time with new folks. But what's cool is that in orientation, you actually on the whiteboard, like I'm doing this, we draw it up on there and we show them how it looks like, right? So they know what they're going to go into. Now, block 1 is 14 minutes, and people have asked me like, why 14 minutes? Well, like 1, it's a lot of testing, but 2, I knew that I have an hour. So I actually believe that, block 1 and block 2, if you had to cut the session short, those are kind of like the 2 most important ones, right? But in 14 minutes, what I found is that most people will get somewhere between 3 to 5, right, sets of like quality sets, meaning working sets, okay? So this is a question too that comes up, and it's very, very important to understand, right? In block 1, let's say I have 16 people. I don't have 16 trap bars, right? I don't have 16 landmines, but I have 4 trap bars. I have 4 landmines, okay? And I'm going to break people up into groups of 3. Now, what's cool about strength and power, what do we not want to do in a strength and power block? We don't want to have people running around and make it a circuit, right? Because if it's a circuit, they're going to be tired. They can't have maximum output, right? Our rep ranges, and again, on week 3, I'm going to dive into the program design of this, right? But our rep ranges here are going to be 2 to 6 right? Because it's the strength, maybe 8 at most, right? We want to have more strain being more challenging sets. Because our goal in this block is improve strength, and it's improved speed and power of contraction of muscles, right? So trap bar deadlift for 3 reps, a broad jump for 5, and we're going to do a half kneeling landmine press for 6 per side, okay? Now let's say, so we got a group of, let's say we got a class of 15. So five people started the trap bar deadlift, 5 started the broad jump, and then 5 started single arm half kneeling landmine press. So you're thinking like, hold on, not every, and let's say I only have 3 trap bars, okay? What is going to happen? Well, 2 people are going to wait for a little bit. How long does it take you to do 3 reps on a trap bar deadlift? 12 seconds, 10 seconds, right? Boom, next person goes. But the cool thing is that the first 2 rounds are what I call ramp-up rounds. They're warm-up sets, just like if you would go and work now we've done the warm-up, sure, but now we're also getting a warm-up with that actual pattern that we're working, right? So we do a trap bar deadlift. So let's say somebody can do 225 pounds, okay, for 3. That's a challenging set of 3 for them. Round 1, they're doing 135 for 3 to 5 reps, right? Just patterning it. Then they're doing a broad jump, but they're not going all out on that broad jump, okay? Then they're doing single arm half kneeling landmine press, and they're doing a weight that they could easily do for like 12 reps, 15 reps. Next time around, trap bar deadlift, now they're going to go 185, right? They're going to go 185 pounds on that for a 3. Broad jump, they're going to put a little more intensity behind it. Single arm half kneeling landmine press, they're going to go a little heavier. Boom, by the time they get to round 3, and I'm coaching the whole time. I'm reinforcing this the whole time. By the way, I'm sweating when I do small group training, right? I'm never just like, right? The music is going, I'm moving around, I'm sweating, I'm coaching everybody. Talk about that in session 2, right? The DNA. But by round 3, they should be doing a challenging 3, max broad jump, max intent, and then a hard 6 here, okay? But here's the deal. Again, if they're not running around, are they going to have to wait for equipment sometimes? 555. Yes, they will. I want that. I want that because you know what people do? Okay, do you know what? Most clients do this, by the way, but women especially do this, is they just want to go. No, I'm ready to go. So I actually want to hold them back in block 1, right? I want to hold them back in block 1 because I want them to give maximum effort and go heavy with great form always on this, okay? And so they have a little bit longer break. That's what I want. I want them to get 2 to 3 sets that are really hard. That's it. In that 14-minute block, right? They're going to have 2 ramp-up sets. Remember, the ramp-up sets go faster, just like you would in your own training session, right? If you were squatting and your squat is 225 for 3 is hard, you do 135 for 5, you wouldn't rest for 2 minutes, right? You'd go and ramp it up faster, and then once you got to your working set, you do that heavy set, whew, now you're taking a longer break. That's exactly how this works, right? And again, I've ran, I'm not exaggerating, I've ran thousands of sessions of small group, tens of thousands of sessions of training myself, thousands of sessions of small group, okay? Every single time, almost every client, if they're a brand new beginner or if they're intermediate or advanced, they're going to get somewhere between 3 to 5, at most 6 hard sets here. But 3 to 5 is like 90% of the time, okay? Awesome. That's what I want, okay? And what we're shooting for, remember, this is a 4-week program, right? We played with a 3 to 6 week, but this is 4 weeks. And I still love this model the most, okay? And week 1 is an intro week. Intro week means that people are going to be figuring it out. New movements, finding their weights. I'm not trying to have anybody in week 1 trying to PR and get none of that, right? They're going to work hard, but it's going to be week 1 and they're going to basically be figuring stuff out, okay? Now, let's look at the progressive model of block 1. This is very important. All I care about in block 1 is going heavy. So the rep ranges in block 1 do not change throughout the weeks. It always stays at 3. It always stays at 5. It always stays at 6 in this specific scenario. I just want them to inch a little bit up and go heavier. Now, here's the deal. Are some weeks, are they going to go heavier? No, that's life. Maybe kids were acting crazy, didn't get a lot of sleep, work had 3 projects for them to finish, their nervous system's shot. They're going to come in, they're going to lift less in week 3 than they did in week 2. That's okay. Keep showing up. But then, bam, week 4, damn, I hit a PR. In that 4 weeks, I guarantee you they're going to go a little bit heavier, right? Even if it's, 2.5 pounds more on the bar for the trap bar, 5 pounds. But they're inching away. That's our whole goal. It's very progressive. Week 1, 2, 3, 4, we're trying to get them heavier on these loads. Now, one thing I will say, okay, let's say it's week 4. I'll say in the coaching program, I'll say something like this. Go heavier than you've gone in this 4-week program, even if it means you can only get 2 reps. Even if it means you can only get 5 reps. Because why? The most important part for me here is that they're increasing load intensity, right? That's the goal of this block, this bucket right here. And what we found, and look, again, the amount of case studies I have is endless, but we've had people come into this model that had, trainers, 101, this, that, the other, and had lifetime bests because we just went through this, right? And when I'm coaching, I'm spending more time, so real quick, this is just a coaching philosophy when it comes to groups. I'm spending more time on a technical lift than I am on another lift. So for instance, I'm going to spend more time on a trap bar deadlift coaching than I will a broad jump or a single arm half kneeling landmine press. Because this is more technical. I want to make sure everybody's on point. So if somebody messes up a little bit on a half kneeling landmine press, it's not going to be that big of a deal, okay? On a trap bar, if somebody's got really horrible form trying to go for a 3-rep heavy set, that's going to be a problem. Now, we are sticklers for form, okay? A crappy rep won't be allowed, right? We're going to regress like we talked about, okay? We're going to coach the hell out of it, elevate it on plates. We're going to do something where they can have very good form, okay, and challenge themselves but have excellent form, okay? Very, very important. But again, here, week to week, I want them to go heavier. That's the premise of block 1. But things like a broad jump, you can't really determine, heavier. What's the progression? I just want intent. I want you to jump as far as you possibly can. And then we use things like external cues, hey, Jenny, jump to that line, right? So she has something to give her that intent, because we know that external cues can help a lot with things like that. So that's our block 1, okay? And that's how we progress it. And also, the question of 14 minutes. Look, is there some leeway here? Absolutely. You want to shorten stuff up, you can make it 12, you can make it 15. There's some leeway here. And as you do this within your own gym, because remember, in my 900 square foot gym versus my 4,700 square foot gym versus my now 12,000 square foot building, those times are different because it's a different space. So you have to figure it out for yourself as far as your space, how this is going to work out. But that 12 to 15 minute range is great here, okay? Then we go into block 2. This is what we call a muscle building block. Why don't we call it hypertrophy? Because your clients don't care about the geeky words, okay? It's this is a hypertrophy block. No, hey, listen, you're going to build lean muscle, okay? You're going to build lean muscle here. They get that, right? So please, I used to be that guy too, where I would come in and just be like, your IR or range of motion is 35 degrees. And they're like, what the hell? Don't worry, we're going to fix your shoulder with these exercises, right? So be better by actually saying less and saying it in simpler ways. And that's why this is the muscle building block. Simple, okay? This is based on EDT, okay? I started doing EDT a long time ago. I've had the guy that kind of coined this was Charles Staley, and it was awesome because about 14 years ago, Charles Staley came and did a seminar in staff, and I've been using EDT for 20 years with huge success in my own training. Then we started doing it at the gym, brought in Charles Staley, really dove into the weeds, and then I used this model to get some incredible results with people, okay? And so that's why I kept it, and it just made so much sense that in this model in block 2, we were like, oh, this makes sense. Let's do escalating density training, okay? And here, what we're doing, notice, we're picking exercises in that 8 to 15 rep range-ish, okay? If we usually go over, we'll kind of do it in block 3 for metabolic stress. In this one, it's around 8 to 15, okay? Just think it that way. But the load that you're going to use, if you do an 8 rep, for instance, right here we got sandbag reverse lunge, 1-arm dumbbell row, band pull apart. As you can see, we're big on more horizontal rowing and pulling and getting the upper back strong because of crappy postures, right? So And in this scenario, this 8 reps, you'd use a weight that you can do for 12, 13, maybe 14 reps. But this is where we push a little bit more, okay? So they're going to do 8 reps per side. Like here, we have longer breaks. Here, the breaks shorten up, okay? And so they do the 8 and 8. They go to one-arm dumbbell row. They got a 20, 30-second break in between. Boom, they go one-arm dumbbell row. Take a little bit of a break. Band pull apart. Take a little bit of a break. Back to sandbag reverse lunge. Right? So the volume and the time frame, which is 12 minutes here, is going to be pretty high, okay? And they're just trying to have as many total reps in that time frame as possible with quality form, right? If form breaks down, I'm like, take a break, rest. I want it to be crisp. Now, here's the thing. What do we do in week 2 of this, okay? The other thing about this, let me pull back for a second, is here, we'll sometimes be using things like safety squat bars, trap bars, right? So maybe you don't have as much equipment and people wait, cool. It's a strength power block. I like them to wait. Here, you're going to have exercises is like a lot less weighting. Kettlebell, dumbbell, I put sandbag here, but if you don't have sandbags, you can use a lot of different things for that reverse lunge, right? So you don't have, even if you have 16 people, you don't have this huge competition for the equipment. You always use what you have. We'll talk about that in week 3 in the actual program design part. Use what you have. I've done this specific model for athlete high schools, like how to use it for the military, right? So I had a strength and conditioning team of a military base that essentially gets a box. They don't know what's going to be in it, and they get 50 recruits. And basically, they're like, Luca, well, we may get some trap bars, but we may not. What would you do? And then we broke down the whole model of like, depending on if you have equipment and not, still following these principles, right? So it's not like, oh my God, I don't have that equipment. Well, you can still do the same thing. You might just have to switch some things up. Although, if you want to run this the best possible, I'm going to answer this in Q&A as well, but it's like, some folks would say, hey, I only got 1 trap bar. Listen, buy 2 more trap bars, right? That's not a huge investment for something that will, bring you in, 6 figures for running 6 hours a small group a week, right? Like, again, those are not huge investments, and if you're serious about doing this, it's not like, hey, you got to buy force plates for $12,000, or you got to buy, a whole new rig and rack. It's like, trap bars $200, right? Buy 2 more trap bars, all of a sudden you can run 15 people, 12 people, 16 people, no problem, right? So that's what I want you to kind of, think about, because once you get to block 2, you can do it with a lot less stuff. We have a lot of body weight movements here a lot of times as well. Now, what are we progressing? How are we progressing block 2, right? Because block 2, week to week, we do, most of the time, what we do is this, add a rep, right? +1. This is the easy, this is not the only way we do it, but it's one of the easiest way we do it. From 8 reps to 9 reps in week 2, 9 reps here, 11 reps here. And then we go 10, 10, 10, 10, 12, 11, 11, 13, right? We just add a rep. Because, why, and here's the question, like, why? Because that way people will for sure do more volume, okay? Now, again, I've tested this out. We've tracked. I'm geeky. Like, I'll test all types of stuff to get data to see if people are going to, do more sets if we keep the reps the same. And what I found is that every time we added a rep, no matter what the client was, they would continue to do more work over time over that 4-week block, okay? Sometimes what we'll do here, we'll add some type of intensification strategy, such as, hey, now in the dumbbell row, I'm going to have you add a 3-second eccentric. So row, 1, 2, 3. Row, 1, 2, 3. Is that harder than regular 8 reps? Absolutely, right? We might add a pause. So like week 2, 1001, 1002, pause, right? So you have a lot of, I would say, malleability, flexibility on how you want to progress it. And we could get really kind of spicy here. But the easiest and best model is just add a rep. Because in the next, basically, if you think about adding, like, you're going to get from 8 to 11 reps in week 4. It's going to be much more challenging sets. So just know that, right? This is the easiest way to do it. Do you have a little bit of leeway? Absolutely. 12 to 14 minutes. Sometimes I'll add a minute, so they have a little bit more time to get more volume in. Okay, and I've found this to just be excellent. And it's also, here's the thing, EDT creates a great client experience. What I mean by that is this, right? They're doing sandbag reverse lunges, one-arm dumbbell rows, and bad pull aparts. And people will be like, oh, my back is lit up. I feel the pump. Yes, right? Sometimes we'll have, and if you look at the programs, you'll see it's more glute dominant, right? Oh, I got a booty pump. Okay, great, awesome. That's what you want, right? Like, again, the experience, what are they feeling? And so this, but it fits. If the volume over the same amount of time goes up, your body is going to adapt and build muscle, right? And again, you can Google EDT and look at I would say the mentality behind it. Also, if you can get 20% more volume in this time, your weight goes up, right? So let's say they're choosing a weight here, one-arm dumbbell row, and like week 2, they already do 20% more volume. I'm like, hey, time to get the weight up. It's too light. Go up with weight. So there's a model within that EDT, right? And I also talk about it in the ebook, so it's actually explained of how to do that. Then we go into the last part, block 3 is conditioning. This one, it says 6 minutes because it's week 1, but it was like anywhere from 6 to 10, 12 minutes is really kind of like where we're going to be at. And we tend to focus on conditioning that most people usually wouldn't do, or they won't even do in classes. So this one is 15 seconds on, 45 seconds on. We'll do a lot of like 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off, explosive repeats, like working that, I would say, anaerobic glycolytic. 15:45 is stretching it there, but again, most people are not really used to doing true HIIT, right? If we talk about true high-intensity interval training, it's like really fast, really explosive, and very short, right? You can't really be doing a HIIT with minute-long intervals. That's not, when people say, I did HIIT, I said, what do you do? We're doing 60 seconds on. I'm like, that's not HIIT, right? That's a misconception. So we're trying to plug in these buckets of what people usually will not do, okay? So we want to do explosive stuff, explosive repeats. We got kettlebell deadlift jumps. This could also be swings, right? Again, we have that progression-regression model. Mountain climbers, because you can move your feet fast on the floor, right, when you're pushing the ground away. And then high knees, which is sprinting on the spot. And you'll tell, like, people that are used to doing, like, group classes and stuff, they'll start doing those short 12-second, 10-second, 15-second intervals and be like, how am I so tired from the short stuff? Because their intensity really drives up. Right? So we're working on things that they usually wouldn't work on. And that's what's so cool about it. So majority of the time we do conditioning. As you look through the programs, right, as you look through the model, you'll see most of it, usually 2 a week are conditioning. Sometimes there'll be one that's metabolic stress, which is like higher rep band. So for instance, band pull aparts, band curls, band shoulder raises, or band hip thrusts, right? Just lateral band walks, stuff that gets you the pump and the burn, right? So we like to put that in a block 3 as well. But most of the time will be conditioning. My ideal breakdown, if you have 3 workouts a week, is do 2 conditioning sessions. One will be like threshold work, one will be more explosive repeats, and then one's going to be metabolic stress. And then we kind of pick metabolic stress upper body, metabolic stress lower body, or maybe a full body, right? But again, now we're tapping into, because the way that I thought about small group personal training was this. If somebody could only come to training 3 times a week, which, let's be real, if somebody could do 3 training sessions for life, I applaud. And you have good quality nutrition in your life, you're going to be great, right? You're going to have some great results from that, right? And we have a lot of people that come just to 3 small group personal training sessions, and they have had insane transformations, insane. And I would legitimately be like, hey, do you do anything? You run? Like, nope. Like, busy as hell, 2 kids. I just come to your 3 sessions. That's it. And I'm like, damn. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm still like, damn, right? Because I see, like, obviously they get their lifestyle in check and nutrition check, but, like, this model just works. And not only that, I got one of my clients, Phil, that's, like, turned 61. He's, like, just deadlifted 405. I just got people, like, I never thought I could ever deadlift this much. And he's 61, he's smashing it, right? Because this just works, okay? It just works, period. So, with that said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go for a little walk, about 30 seconds, while I sip my C4. And then I'm going to come back, and then we're going to do Q&A.